Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Bryan Board of Public Affairs meeting for November 15th, 2022. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the November 1st, 2022 meeting. Board, you've been supplied with a copy of the minutes. If there are any additions or corrections?
Seeing none, Jim, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the November 1st minutes as written.
Second. Dick?
Yes.
Karen? Yes. Jim?
Yes.
Annette? Yes. Tom?
Yes. Next is hearing of public concerns. Anyone present that would like to address the board that's not on the agenda? Seeing none. Next is Clerk Treasurer's report.
The board's been presented with the clerk treasurer's report for the month ending October 31st, 2022.
Any questions? Not to ask for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the clerk treasurer's report.
I will second it.
Tom?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Next is Police Chief Greg Ruskey.
Good evening. Last week, council approved the purchase of moving forward with a flock camera safety system for the city. 5 of those 7 cameras are going to need to be directly powered from BMU, and I'm just looking to get some authorization from you guys to tap into that.
Just a request for free service to power the cameras. It's basically, they only draw 1 amp of power, so I mean, it's a very minimal.
Is that for each camera? Or
Yeah,
just-
1 amp for each camera.
Oh, okay.
You say there'll be 7 altogether?
7 altogether. Yep, one's going to be solar, the other one's going to be mobile, so it'll be battery charged.
Question?
Curiosity, what are they going to be recording?
I don't want to go into all the details, but it
Okay.
basically alerts dispatch and patrol to someone coming in with a warrant or driving under suspension, along with some other investigative aspects to it.
Sounds like a good idea to me. Any questions?
Another layer of eyes.
Yeah, there you go. Any questions for the chief? Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion that we give the Bryan PD the free service.
Second.
Dick?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Good night.
Yep.
Next is presentation of the 2023 utility budget. You're on deck.
Try to make it as painless as possible. So I think all of you in your board packets got a more detailed budget for the 2023, so it's a lot to absorb in this presentation that I'm going to give, so we're not going to be asking for any action tonight. Feel free to take it home. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out to us. We can get into more details and answer things, and we'll come back at our next meeting and probably look to approve it. So we'll get started, and we'll start out with the electric utility, and first we'll talk a little bit about power supply. So power supply is BMU's greatest single annual expense. I think it represents 79% of our total annual electric O&M expenses last year. So that's pretty substantial. In 2023, AMP power supply forecast is $9.7 million, which is fairly inexpensive at $53 a megawatt. I think next year and maybe the year after might be some of our cheapest power that we have, and AMP has forecasted that to go up probably up to maybe by 2027, it could be up as high as 77 megawatts per hour. So one thing that we do have in our favor right now is why these costs are kind of cheap is because we have the BP remaining credits contract that we have right now, which means additional power we buy, partially buy through the BP credits, and it's basically $36.75 a megawatt hour. So that's inexpensive. That's inexpensive power, probably some of the most inexpensive power you can buy. Problem is that's only good through the end of 2024. So that agreement kind of falls by the side. The problem is you can't buy power for that anymore. Just recently, the EDI landfill gas, which ended in December of 2021, for comparison, we were roughly paying about $53.80. Blue Creek Wind Farm that just ended in June of this year, it was about $52.30. So we're actively looking for some replacement power. One thing that we had talked about was the solar that AMP was working on. So we're looking for replacement power that's inexpensive and cheap to get into some of these projects. So we're working hard at trying to make that happen. But right now we're really lucky for the next 2 years we have what we have. But we need to find some type of inexpensive power. And just one more thing, energy derived from our renewable energy sources in 22, it still exceeds, even with what we have now, the BPA's goal of 25%. A little bit about peak shaving. This is kind of a sensitivity analysis. So our efforts yearly from the customers pays off. You know, we call on our customers, and so thanks to everyone out there. This kind of gives you an idea. Bryan's power costs on the left of BMU hitting 66% of the peaks. And then on the right-hand column, it shows us hitting 100% of the peaks. Fortunately, our guys, not to jinx us, but they usually hit 100%. And so you can see some of the cost savings there. Basically from this chart, you can see it affects generation. Our power bill in 2023 hitting 100% equates to about $1.4 million, or a savings of $7.65 per megawatt hour, which is it's substantial. Generation was in this for the future years was calculated at 29 megawatts. Currently, we have the capacity of 38.5 megawatts, but that kind of varies summer to winter. You know, cooler weather, our generation runs more efficiently and we can produce more. So they calculated at 29 megawatts. Electric O&M utility budget. We'll start out with our electric revenues. In 2021, they totaled $19.7 million. In 22, we budgeted $19.7 million, and currently we're projecting $21 million in revenues. So we're proposing in 23 budget a total of $20.6 million, and some of the highlights are, if you look down through there, the renewable energy credits, which we call RECs. I want to thank Sylvia, for such a great job she's done in getting us some of these deals. You can kind of look up there and see that, we budgeted, $65,000 and we're projecting over $150,000. She did a great job I don't know how she does it sometimes, but she does a great job of getting the most out of our RECs. So I want to publicly thank her for that. A lot of this year's increase was due to the increase in income, interest income, as you can see. Of course, interest rates rise, and so do the rates. So it's actually a pretty substantial increase there. So you can see the bottom line there is just basically the total revenues we're projecting in 23 to have 20.6 million. So talking about some of the expenses, as we look at those, our 2021 actual expenses were about $17.6 million, while our 22 budget was set at about $18.9 million. Currently, we're projecting a little lower at 17.5, so that's a good thing. We're proposing expenses in 2023 to be about 19.7, and you would expect these costs to be higher. We got fuel and gas prices and overall insurance rates. All of those things contribute to this increase. So here you can see the solar lease also came off in 2022, which is saving us over about $600,000 a year in lease payments that we had from it. Then you can also note that we added a line there for the solar field operations as well, so we can start tracking that to see our power costs, which are going to be substantially a lot lower. It's probably going to be the most expensive power that we have or we could ever buy. So that's a great thing for the next 10, 15 years. So that's a positive. And then, of course, at the bottom you can see our expenses as they go down there up to 2023. We're closing to 19.7 million. Projected operating results. Our projected operating results are basically just taken from the previous slides of our revenues less our expenses. So giving our net income as shown in the bold under net income. The only debt for the electric department is for the AMI, and typically these last couple of years we've only been paying the interest payment in 21 and 22, and then in 24 we'll start making those 10 P&I payments. 10 level payments for the rest of the 10 years. So like I said, that's the only debt that the electric department has. The department transfers to the capital in 2021 was about $1 million, and we anticipated in 22 budget to transfer $2 million, which we did earlier in the year. We're now, and we'll talk about this more in depth, this is kind of what we'll be talking about later, but we would like to do a transfer early this year. Basically, it's like our 23 we would have, but we want to get started early. And so we want to transfer another $2 million, which, like I said, we'll discuss it more as time goes on. But this gives us a jump start on next year's projects, lead times, everything else. The sooner we can, the building, which you'll see coming up in the Capitol, the sooner we can get that stuff out there, the better chance of getting in line for some of these things, transformers, and the other one is a possible building, getting that on the books and getting it bid out if we need to or ordered. So I thought if we got an early start on it, it would be a lot better to go ahead. The money's there to go ahead and move it now. Gives us a jump start. We don't have to wait to the beginning of the year, then do a transfer. It's just I know we've not done it, or at least since I've been here, we've not done it, but I think it's a great idea in the times that we're in. And like I said, we can talk more about that in a little bit, but I just wanted you to kind of understand that. Then we possibly will be proposing the $200,000 for next year, if we need it. At this point, we're not sure if we'll even need it. We may not have to transfer it, but it's going to be in there just in case something comes up or prices increase that we do need it. I don't anticipate it. So now we're going to talk about the electric capital, and I've invited all of our department heads here to kind of give you an overview of each one of their larger projects. And if you could, maybe Jim, you could get us started.
Evening, everyone.
James.
Hi. With the power plant, as Nate was talking about, we had planned on waiting for the transformer in order to kind of catch up, being as frugal as we can and working with inside the crews to get the power plant and some of the equipment installed before we got there. However, we're being told by engineering companies and stuff that the transformers are a year to 18 months out. So that's why we wanted to get started early, so we could get in line at least. They were projecting, instead of it being a $600,000 to $700,000 transformer, it was going to be $1.1 million for that transformer. We're hoping to get in line enough and ahead enough schedule that maybe we can bring that down. But that's why you see that 1.3 there, is just to cover some extra costs and to be able to cover that transformer by what we were told. We don't have any actual prices until we get the whole bid package ready and see what comes back, but we're hoping for a little bit less. But that's the reason why you're seeing the 1.3 up there. The other thing with the RTU is skate upgrades. That's just to continue on with upgrading the current Scouts up to Schweitzer RTUs and eliminating the old outdated technology that we can't get any parts for. We've got 2 curtain and industrial sub now, and I just ordered some parts for this year that will go start for Bechtel and bring that up. The electrical substation SCADA network upgrade and the syscall more falls into kind of Joe's basket a little bit, but it's upgrading those communication devices out at the substations and our phone systems in order to be able to communicate with everything more reliably. That's updating some of the rugged comms and things that are at the substation so we don't have those things going down. And all glaze, once again, there's plenty of work for the crew to do at the power plant since we're doing most of everything we possibly can in-house. So I've just pared down the all glaze just to the concrete repairs in order to maintain everything in the future. Yes, Annette?
Are these the concrete repairs that have been on this?
Every year we have concrete that gets chipped off by ice or breaks, and so each year we try to put some money in there to repair that stuff. We also did some of that when we put the coating on. I guess it wasn't really concrete repairs, but it was repairing the concrete dam when we sprayed that coating on from Advanced Rehabilitation Technologies. And we just inspected that last week to make sure we had it all power washed off to make sure, and the coating is still there. So it is held up really well.
So there's always going to be something for concrete repairs in the
Yeah,
budget?
yeah. Ice and water, age, that kind of thing. Other questions? All right, I'll pass off to Al.
As we normally do, we do a system URD, which is our underground distribution projects, which are overhead to underground conversions that we do in town. I have proposed a few projects here, the 300 block at East High between Cherry and Myers, the 300 block at East Bryan between Cherry and Myers, the 600 block of East South Street, east of Bel Air Avenue, and we have a 12 kV feeder we want to put in for house power over at the power plant on the south side. So them are 4 projects that I have slated for that next year. The overhead rebuild projects, they're potential projects that we have. We're kind of looking at different ways to reroute some load to provide capacity on certain particular circuits. Maybe for, to open up some capacity at our industrial site up there. So we did have maybe getting like the Bryan Fire and Police, getting them on a different circuit with our hospitals, more of an emergency circuit, which probably should be, but that would be running, down the 300 block of West Bryan Street, building some overhead over to pick that up, which alleviates getting some of the capacity off of Baker 1, which is our Spangler circuit. So we also have some rebuilds on County Road 13, on County Road E, between 13 and Main Street, South Union Street between East South Street and County Road C, and we also are looking at West South Street between South Main and Noble Drive for them projects. Our switches are, every year we budget for 12 kV line switches, and we just order a couple of them per year to replace what switches we have in town, which are circuit tie switches, which are on the 12 kV distribution system. Fault indicators, again, we always budget money to either install or replace our fault indicators we have on our overhead and underground systems in town. The Deerfield underground replacement, again, that's on there, but it's reduced quite a bit because we're only purchasing materials because of our waiting for a directional boring rig. So we would just still need to purchase some materials for that project. And also with the Carson Drive, that's materials only on them projects. Distribution transformers, they provide all our pad and pole mount replacements in town, and any potential 3-phase transformers that we may need throughout the year. Distribution pole replacements are still working in the southwest quarter on some condemned poles and other poles that we need to replace. We usually buy our poles through that line. Street lighting, $50,000. The city proposed a couple improvement projects on Baker Street and Rollin. If them two go, we'll put all our money towards providing lighting on them 2 streets. If they don't, and of course, this was all proposed work that was gonna happen. If not, I propose replacing the 100 block of North Main, them 14 mold cast fixtures that we have left on the north, what is that, the 100 block of North Main Street. That would be the last of them square ones we had from the 80s, and the problems that we have with them constantly. Which that would be just a pole and fixture replacement, not a total pier and conduit and wire and everything. So we may replace the wire, but I think we can do it for the $50,000 that we have budgeted for it. Tomcat floor scrubber and sweeper, that's more for our warehouse back here. We get a lot of dust off our trucks and through the on our materials and on our layout arms and safety equipment that we have out there. It's very dusty, and we need to try to control that. I mean, it seems like we'll spray the floor down and it does never look like it's clean. We did look at this, local company had one on site, and we went and inspected it and looked at it, and I thought, man, this might be the ticket for keeping our facility a little cleaner, and keeping our equipment and materials clean that we have in our warehouse. So that's kind of the reason for that we would like to purchase that. The other is a traffic control device. These are, you've seen them probably before, they're traffic signals that you can set up, and they're linked between wirelessly through communications, and they allow us to conduct traffic control without using employees, for one, which is a savings that we don't have to have extra employees out there, and it's also a safety measure so we're not having our employees man traffic while we're doing work on our main thoroughfares. But we do have tree trimming going on, and when we do have Asplin come to town, we do have to pay for extra flaggers when they're needed on 34 and stuff, so we would also be able to use this device for that, and not really have to pay for an extra 2 people to flag to do tree trimming. We could set this up and it would run and provide that also as a benefit for the utility. I think I covered everything unless there's any questions.
Al, you said on the underground distribution projects,
yes.
You said you had one on between County Road 13 and North Main Street on
the overhead?
Yeah, on E?
County Road E, yeah, that would be rebuilding that line on County Road E on the south side of E there.
Okay.
Goes from 13 all the way to Main Street.
Okay.
Roughly. And poles are getting in, need repairs.
That'd be any kind of preparation in case we get an interest in the industrial part?
In my mind, that's all part of that.
Okay. Okay. I guess that's what I was wondering. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? All right.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Joe.
The first thing on the electric communications is the head-end building. This is a building that we started discussing and working on back in 2015. For a lot of different reasons that it has not gotten built, and so we remain in the head end over here in basically the metal building. It's basically a pole barn. Next year we desperately need to try to do something with this. Nate and I have worked on many options, and we have different options for the building because of the cost per square foot of all commercial construction has exponentially gone up over the last 3 years after COVID. we're going to have to do what we can do to get out of that building over there and to keep the cost as reasonable as possible. Which is the reason that projecting for the $700,000, that takes care of the building and all the infrastructure and the electrical and all the hardware inside the building to be able to move the equipment that we have to the new building. So we would like to try to address that, which is a reason that he mentioned a few minutes ago about transferring some capital earlier to try to start being able to get our quotes and so forth for that. The only thing I'll say is I think everyone in this room knows, and anybody that might be watching the meeting, if that building goes down, you have no communication in this utility, in this city, in all of the villages that we serve in Williams County. I think everybody thinks it's just going to sit and operate. But last Saturday, we had really bad winds where I live, and when I went to church Sunday morning, there was a building just about like that one that had the roof peeled off like a tin can. So, be that as it may, we'll do the best we can. The head-in UPS, we have an old UPS in the head end. This would be used either in the new building or to put a larger one in Bryan Street Hub, according to what we have to do up by the fire department. That dollar figure also, you'll see it on the capital budget on its communications as well. The industrial park fiber upgrade, that would basically be just for fiber cable and hardware to do some more of that fiber out at the industrial park. This is all planned for the eventual decommission of the Daggett substation, to where that fiber will be taken out of there and everything rerouted back to industrial park substation. So that's what that expense would be. The inter-ring fiber hardware, we purchased some this year. We'll have to try to purchase some next year. We're trying to get to be able to actually construct most of that next year to get it tied down and terminated in the Bryan Street Hub. And that will give us a large amount of capacity for years to come for the inner city, and this will also be used to tie into the power plant substation when we bring it online. So that's it's pretty important fiber ring for us. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
I'll talk a little bit about the electric utility office while we're up here. We're looking to replace one of our almost 12-year-old GIS handhelds in the engineering department. And 23, along with one of our most used pieces of equipment, the engineering department's plotter and scanner, which is again almost 12 years old as well. So these two items will be split between the electric and the water departments, along with the Cisco call manager, which will be, you see it in there, it's pretty much divvied up through all departments to cover that, which I think Joe talked a little bit about the Cisco call manager. So with that, the total 23 utility capital improvements is proposed to be almost $2.7 million, which is in line with, you remember Sawville and Associates did our rate study, and that's pretty much right where we were planned to be in our rate study. So we're right on track. This is one of the larger years in that rate study, so we're right there. I think it was at 2.7 and we're at 2.69. So this capital reserve fund, we've kind of already touched on almost all of this stuff in here as far as the beginning and ending balances. It breaks down the transfers that we did prior in year-end transfer in the beginning of the year. Then we also did a solar lease reappropriation. We had that extra solar payment that we reappropriated into the capital as well. So our electric capital reserve fund balance as of October 31st is $2.1 million. So we'll talk a little bit about the utility budget, and I'll let Derek give you a break.
Good evening. Like Nate said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the water O&M budget, and then Jimmy and I are both going to talk a little bit about the capital budget. The first portion we want to talk about is the revenues. If we start on the column all the way to the left, the 2021 actual numbers, you'll see our customer sales were 2.5 million. Customer sales are your metered water, your bulk water, and your tap fees. Your other operating, your interest income, and your other non-operating are just other revenue sources. For 2021, our total water revenues then were 2.5 million. When we budgeted for 2022, we budgeted customer sales at 2.5 million, and we ended the year with total revenues, or we budgeted for total revenues at 2.6 million. When we look at 2022 projected year-end revenues, our customer sales are at 2.75 million, so we're doing better than what we budgeted for. Also want to point out the interest income in there. We budgeted 4,000. We're projecting 29,000 now, and again, that's because of the higher interest rates, so we're earning more on our cash. And then we also want to talk about the 266,000. That was for the mural painting. That's the donation for the Bryan Tower, so that was included in our revenues. The total revenue there is a little over 3 million. It's a little bit inflated because of that $266,000 donation. When we look at the 23 proposed revenues, we're at 2.5. That number came from the last revenue requirement analysis that John Courtney did for us this fall, and that study was also based on 0% growth. And again, we want to look at that interest income. In 2022, we budgeted 4,000, and now in 2023, we're budgeting 100,000. So total revenues budgeted for 23 are 2.7 million. We can talk a little bit about the expenses. I do want to note that the expenses don't include any capital transfers or debt service. In the first column there, the 21 actual expense was 1.6 million. Budgeted expenses for 2022 in the supply and distribution were 1.6 million. And then the total budgeted expenses were 2.2 million. We're projected to end 2022 at 1.6 million in our supply and distribution. That also has the $241,000 in it for the donation to the tower painting. So even when you add that in there, our expenses are still less than what we budgeted for. The year-end totals then come in at a little over 2 million. For 2023, we're proposing supply and distribution to have 1.8 million in expenses. That's a little bit higher than 22. Again, rising insurance costs. We also have new employees in the water department. The training costs are higher. And then, like everybody knows, inflation. Our operating supplies and our supplies and materials have really been impacted by that. So that's why you see the increase there. Total O&M expenses for 23 are about 2.4 million.
What kind of percentage increase did you see in insurance rates?
The health insurance this year, we saw a 10% increase this year.
To talk a little bit about the projected operating results, we've already talked about revenues and expenses, so this slide just kind of looks at the big picture. We want to look at the net income or the margin, and then at the bottom, the net change in the fund balance. If we start for the 21 actual numbers, we had a net income of $943,000, and then we had a net change in our fund balance, or an increase of $619,000. When we budgeted for 22, we were projecting a net income of $360,000, and then a decrease in our fund balance of $381,000. We also had to take into account our debt service, and then we were planning to make a $620,000 transfer to capital. We were doing that so we could get our capital projects done. Projected year end for 22. As you can see, our revenues are up, our expenses are down. Our net income there is a little bit over $1 million. We take into account our debt service, the $620,000 transfer that we already did, and then just like the electric department, proposing an $850,000 transfer yet this year to the capital. So that's a decrease in the fund balance of $564,000. When we look at the 23 proposed, we would have a net income of $240,000, but only a decrease in our fund balance of $4,000. Right now, at the end of 22, we're projecting our fund balance to be $2.14 million. With this proposed budget, including the $850,000 transfer, the fund balance at the end of 23 is $2.1 million. Our minimum cash reserve is $1.6 million, so we're still comfortably above that minimum number. I want to talk about debt service just a little bit for the water department. South Walnut Street, we have a $27,000 payment this year. That is the last one to pay off that main replacement project. We also have a $40,000 payment for the Town Line Road main replacement project. That one extends until 2029. And then we have an interest payment on the AMI project of $26,000. So total debt service for 23, just a little over $94,000. It is about a $30,000 decrease from 2022. But if you look going forward to 2024, our debt service jumps up quite a bit. That's because we'll be making those full principal and interest payments on the AMI project. Just to talk a little bit about the water capital, Jimmy's going to come up and go over the projects, and then I'll finish up with a review.
Good evening, everyone. The first item that you'll see is hydrants, mirrors, and valves. This is something that you've seen in previous years. We appropriated $20,000 for this. This definitely helps out our distribution system, the health of our distribution system, and provides reliability to our customers. Typically, this is used for any repairs that our guys find out in the field. These are typically found when we're doing hydrant flushing, valve exercising programs. Next you see is a backup generator for well 7. This will provide a backup generation for not only the well, but for the well house and the SCADA controls that are inside. This will be a CAT 60 kW generator. This will be a smaller scale generator to what you see at the treatment plant that we just installed this summer. High service pump 3 rehab. This is just one of 3 high service pumps that are at the water treatment plant facility. This main responsibility is to provide water to the city. These usually run at 2,200 gallons per minute. This is a very vital piece of equipment to our water treatment plant. The reason why we're doing a rehab on this high service pump is because each high service pump per year gets an average run time of 1,400 hours. It's a lot of hours on one pump, so it's very crucial that we go ahead and take an in-depth look at these high service pumps. With these high service pumps rehab, not only do we inspect the motor, but we inspect the shafts for any imbalances. We inspect the impellers, for proper clearances as well. For well 7, we also have a rehab and conversion. For the conversion, right now we have a 25 horsepower vertical turbine motor. We're looking to go to a submersible motor, and that will also be a 25 horsepower motor. One of the reasonings on going to a submersible motor is because of the efficiencies and also the turnaround time. When you go to rehab a well or rehab a motor, the typical turnaround time on a submersible pump, you're looking about 2 to 5 days, compared to as a vertical pump, it's usually about a month and a half. Next, you'll see a distribution vehicle replacement. This may look familiar to you. We have appropriated $75,000. This was also on the 2022 capital improvements. The reason why this is getting carried over is because our order was tough to get pulled from GM. It never got pulled, and in order to have your vehicle built, your order first has to be pulled. So we're hoping within the first part of 2023, we can get our distribution crews vehicle. One of the bigger projects for our capital improvements is the South Lynn Street project. This is a joint project with the city. We have appropriated $400,000. We were awarded $540,000 for this project, which helped out tremendously. This project will consist of 2,466 foot of water main. Right now, those residents are served by a 4-inch cast iron water main. What will be going in is a 12-inch PVC water main. So it'll be very beneficial to residents on South Lynn. And also, I believe there's about 80 service lines that will be going in as well, and 5 new fire hydrants. Next, we have distribution saddle and service replacements. We appropriated $30,000. This is something new for this year. This kind of goes in hand with the Ohio EPA and the lead service line inventory. This will also help us repair any defective saddles and service lines that we have within our system to help reduce our water loss numbers as well. And of course, like Joe and Nate have covered, was the call meter upgrade. And for a total, for a water treatment plant and distribution improvements, we're looking at a little over $665,000 for 2023. You will also see, once again, in the water utility office, like Nate discussed, is the engineering plotter, the GIS handheld controller, and the call manager, and the water and the electric will be split that as well. Any questions?
And just for general knowledge, to anybody that's watching, where is well 7 located?
Well 7 is just right down the road by the railroad tracks, just off of East Edgerton Street.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry.
You're right. Anything else?
I do have an odd question. What's a hydrant go for these days? Cost of purchase?
Right now, we're looking around $6,000. And price increases are going to be effective December of this year.
Sure.
Mention that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
So to finish up the water budget, we'll just look at the projected operating results. We estimated in '22, we budgeted for a beginning fund balance of $108,000. Then we budgeted for the $620,000 transfer that was going to give us capital funds available of $728,000, and we budgeted for $617,000 in expenses. We were budgeting for a capital reserve ending fund balance of $110,000. 2022 projected year-end beginning balance is $714,000. So there's quite a bit of an increase there. The reason for that is the dollars that are encumbered and not yet spent. This includes the MI project and other orders that we haven't received yet. With the $620,000 transfer we already did, the proposed $850,000 transfer, and then we also have $295,000 donation for the Airmate Waterline project that gave us available funds at the end of the year at $2.4 million. We are anticipating to spend $1.4 million by the end of the year, leaving us with an estimated fund balance of just over $1 million. We would start the year in 2023 with just a little over $1 million. We do have an additional $150,000 transfer in there. If needed, that would give us total available funds of $1.1 million, and we anticipate spending $690,000 in capital improvements like Jimmy just talked about next year, leaving us with an ending fund balance in 23 of $477,000. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
One more, communications utility. We'll start out with the communications revenues. So as you would expect, with the loss of our cable TV this year, we are projecting the 2023 to come in around $791,000 for our revenues. It's a big change from $2.2 million that we saw in 2021. So this is going to be our first year of the 2023, so we're trying to get all of our numbers straight. But on the flip side of that is our communication expenses due to the elimination of one of our greatest expenses, cable TV programming. So with the loss of our cable TV revenues, we did lose the cable TV programming costs, which were huge. So you'll see our proposed 23 expenses come in at around $1.1 million compared to almost $2.4 million in 2021. So quite the change there in the communication department. Projected operating results taking into consideration the revenues minus the expenses and our net revenues. It isn't as bleak, I guess, as it could have been. I guess that's the bottom line. It could have been a lot worse. If you note the net change in the fund balance budgeted in 22 is projected to be a loss of over $614,000. And in 2023, we have reduced that projection down to a loss of about $339,000. So our goal was to slow down these losses, and I think the decisions made accomplished that. The communication fund balance as of October 31st was nearly $1.9 million. And I kind of reran some minimum fund calculations for 2023, and that balance is $516,975. So we're well above that number. The capital improvements, as you can see here, for Sarah Bandwidth Manager, controller upgrade for Great Lakes, the Cisco call manager, all that came in at $36,000 basically. And you can see we didn't do a capital transfer because we have enough money left in there to try to conserve on that budget that we still had. Beginning balance in 23 is going to be $97,000, and by the time we spend that 36, we're still going to have $61,000 left over in the capital. So Joe does a great job of managing his budget. He knows it's tight, and he always does better than projected. So I'm confident that that will be continuing. So the communication capital reserve balance is in October 31st, 22 is $112,518. One thing I'll add, the total overall BMU budget, we kind of talked about each one. Overall BMU budget for 22 is projected to be about $30.18 million. Our 23 budget is projected to be about $29.97 million overall. So this is a decrease in spending from 22 to 23 of about $206,700 or a decrease of about 0.68%. So they just give you a basic overall view of everything that we've done this year. And we're projecting for next year. Does anybody have any questions about that? Like I said, we're really not asking for any action tonight. I would ask that you would really look that over, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. So,
I just have one.
Sure.
Go back a little bit. The GIS handheld that
Yeah.
you budgeted for, the split between the electric, is that a mapping?
it's the, you want to know what it is, I guess?
Yeah.
It's, you know when you see the guys with walking around out there and on the side of their stick, they basically have a handheld computer. It's what communicates with everything that you type it in and you enter and you take your shots and then you bring it back and you can hook it up to a computer and it downloads it. It's one of the most vital pieces of it, and you can imagine at 12 years old how fast technology goes outdated. So this one's pretty much outdated. One of them we're having problems even to connect. So it's in, you know, some of the software they don't even support anymore. The typical 12-year-old software and stuff. So it's just basically in real life.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Yeah.
So it's my understanding getting a new phone system?
The Cisco phone system, is that what you're talking about? Is it an upgrade, isn't it? Or?
It's, the Cisco phone system operates the phones for the utility and almost all of the departments in the city of Bryan. It is Cisco based. It's actually a big network server. There's two of them. They're in two separate locations, so they back each other up for redundancy if something should happen. Once again, as far as communications, the call managers that we currently have are end of life and end of support in next year. So they have to be replaced or we have no support from Cisco on them.
Okay. Just going through here and adding it up, it looks like it costs $58,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's just for an upgrade?
No, ma'am, it's new equipment.
It's new
It's upgrade. When I say upgrade, it's the entire system except the telephones themselves. Brand new servers and all of the software and the operating system and the professional services that go with it.
Just everything but the phones?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's for the city too?
It's for almost all of this. There's like 2 departments in the city that is not on our phone system.
Okay.
Anything else?
I just wanted to clarify, you were asking for the city health insurance increase, correct?
Oh, I was just asking for the insurance cost increase altogether.
Okay, that's where I was, okay. The 10% is pretty accurate on what our property
Yeah.
insurance rates were
And
going
then
up this year.
insurance
Our
and-
health insurance was at 8, and I just wanted to kind of make sure.
You know, like what kind of increase did you include for fuel costs increase altogether? You know, just general inflation costs, did you budget for?
Yeah, I don't know about these, I can't really, I can get that for you, but to be honest with you, what we did is we took the cost of this last month and then, you know, basically went by it because what the fuel costs are. We know what the increase is, just like the chlorine gas, how much it increased. So we kind of budgeted that amount for the 12 months of next year.
But when you were talking about the insurance, I guess the only thing I just wanted to
I should have
clarify.
clarified.
Well, we have a boiler and machinery insurance policy, and I guess I was thinking you might be going into that depth. I wasn't
Like
sure.
property insurance, because like, for example, I heard that property insurance went up 15-20%, not health insurance.
Yes, property went up significantly this year,
Yes.
but
Solar
what you
field
see on.
outlays, all that stuff all of it went
A
up.
huge
Yeah.
increase, so, you know,
But
that's.
we went ahead and budgeted for around 10 for next year, but the piece that also seems to stick out like a sore thumb when you look at the BMU budget is we have a boiler and machinery policy that we try to lock in a 3-year rate on, and next year is our 3rd year. So that always increases the BMU budget significantly, especially in the hits the electric department a little bit harder than everybody else. But it increases the budget significantly when we're planning for that. And with it being a
I guess I
three-year
should
renewal.
clarify when I said insurance, I meant property insurance.
Well, that's kind of, I wanted to make sure, I'm like, okay, health or property, and because our health became a new aid, so I just wanted to be sure.
But it all went up.
Everything, everything, we did our best to bring it to negotiate, we really have, but, yeah, we
I
can't.
meant property insurance.
Yeah, and unfortunately for us, our property insurance rolls on October 1, and I called Nate at the end of August, and I'm like, you watching this hurricane? I mean, just, and I'm like, okay, here we go, so, yeah, everybody's just getting jacked up pretty significantly.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution. Lori, would you number and read, please?
Resolution number 45, 2022, authorizing the Director of Utilities to apply for an Ohio EPA emergency generator equipment grant.
The Ohio EPA is now offering a grant opportunity for emergency generator equipment for an amount not to exceed $50,000. This is public water systems that serve less than 10,000 people are eligible to apply. Over the past couple of years, we've made significant capital investments in the water treatment backup generator. Currently working on backup generation for wells 3, 4, and 5. Next on our plan was to upgrade well number 7. And as you heard earlier, that is in the 23 draft budget. We have plans completed. We have the grant application filled out. So at this time, I'm requesting the board's permission to go ahead and submit that application.
Any questions?
Time's coming up pretty soon. Can we get it done
Yeah,
in time?
it's got to be turned in by the 21st of November.
It's a pretty substantial grant. I mean, that's going to save a lot of money. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution 45.
I'll second it.
Tom? Oh, I'm sorry, Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Let's make it go looking straight across.
Next on the agenda is another resolution. Lori, would you number and read?
Resolution number 46, 2022, authorizing the appropriation and transfer from the 501 Electric Fund to the 515 Electric Capital Reserve Fund.
This kind of goes along with what we were talking about, the capital. This is basically, just like Lori said, a request to, with the national market economic condition warrants the electric department to consider lead times, rising prices for capital improvement projects planned in our 2023 budget. So we would like to request additional appropriations of the $2 million into the 501 Electric Fund to be transferred to the 515 Electric Capital Reserve Fund to basically get started on these projects like we talked about, especially for the transformer, get it started and get the bidding process going on that, and possibly the building and getting that going. The sooner we can do that, the better off we're going to be as far as lead times go, and hopefully if costs continue to rise, it's like we talked about, getting our foot in there and getting our place in line. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what it is. And this one is for the electric, and the next one basically is for the water for the same purposes.
Questions?
Does this mean that it'll also help hold material costs too?
We would hope so. Like if we bid something, we would hope that it would. But as you've seen prior, you're never locked into something. I mean, we do our best to do that. But the sooner we can get it in there and get ahead of other people, the better off we're going to be. But I can't really say that it guarantees us a cheaper price, or prices will not change. I think it's an advantage, I guess is all it is. I think it's an advantage that we should take advantage of if we have the opportunity to, and hope for that.
Well, things keep getting long, with the long lead times, like the 18 months.
Right.
Yeah, you do have to, you can't keep putting projects off indefinitely
Right.
with that kind of lead time.
And we've waited for some of these projects and kind of, thinking that things were gonna get better, but there comes a point that you can't, let your system go. You still have to maintain it, and, there may be a slight increase, but, we still have to move forward. Just like, when we're talking about this transformer that we're wanting to order, this is the one that, we have two turbines down there, the Norberg and this GE, that this is what we need to, put power back out there on our 69, and without that, you just saw the cost savings up there of what generation does for our system. So the investment will pay for itself, and we're hoping that it comes in less. And part of that money wasn't all for that transformer, part of it was for the materials where they're out there now. They've opened up the ground, they're doing the grounding grid, and they're pouring footers and stuff like that. So a little bit of that money is not all for the transformer, part of it is for the materials also to finish up that project. So it's an investment that will pay for itself in time, but we can't keep waiting, and just because of the lead times of 18 months. So those are the biggest reasons.
Very important.
Time is of the essence. Any other questions? Can I have a motion?
To make a motion that we adopt resolution 46.
I'll second.
Dick?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Next is another resolution. Lori, would you number and read, please?
Resolution number 47, 2022, authorizing the appropriation and transfer from the 502 Water Fund to the 525 Water Capital Reserve Fund.
This is a similar one, except for the water department. We're looking to request additional appropriations of $850,000 into the 502 Water Fund account to be transferred to the 525 Water Capital Fund for the capital improvement projects and needed bidding and ordering of these projects.
It's kind of the same, thing, just different department then.
Correct.
Okay. Questions? No. Motion, please.
I'll move to approve resolution number 47.
I'll second.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Dick?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Next is to affect semi-monthly disbursements. Can I have a motion to pay the bills, please?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Next, comments from BPA and staff. Nate?
I'm parched. I know I've talking so much, so I'm just gonna keep it plain and simple, and I really don't have anything more to add.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to attend the ABPA conference last week. It's one of the better conferences I've been to. Of course, the common thread on everyone's lips that spoke over the last 3 days was the supply chain issues. Smart meters, conductors, transformers, just can't get them. Lead times are crazy. But in the same vein, having trouble with contracts that are already in place and the contractors demanding change orders to increase the price even though they have contracted for a particular price. And so then on the flip side of that coin was projects that are dealing with either ARPA funds or grant funds and the requirements for Buy America, which naturally you want to support, but the difficulty with necessarily getting your manufactured or produced products in the United States. So difficulties everywhere across the nation. Had a good seminar on power pole attachments and the updates on that, recent highlights. Talked, of course, quite a bit about grants and the promotion of electric vehicles and what's coming there. The grants that are available in Ohio, DeWine just passed with regard to electric charging stations. Of course, then with the difficulty with demand charges and how that will work too. So it was quite interesting, so thank you.
No, sir, thank you.
Jimmy, you have anything else you'd like to add? Al?
Thanks.
Jim? Derek?
I just have two things really quick. At the last meeting on November 1st, by Resolution 42, the board authorized the creation of 2 new job classifications. At this time, I'd like to request permission to post for one of those, the GIS coordinator. We'd like to begin the recruitment process. The GIS coordinator position will be responsible for and accountable for the GIS system. If you wish for us to proceed with that, it would take a motion.
Any questions for Derek? Okay, motion. Let's do it.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Dick?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. The one last thing I have is, for those of you that don't know, Jimmy is the Assistant Secretary Treasurer for the Northwest District AWWA Board. I want to thank him and the board. This Thursday, they'll be hosting the fall meeting at the New Hope Community Church. It's an opportunity for water professionals to get together, continue their education, and learn about issues in the water industry. So thanks to Jimmy and the Northwest District Board. That's all I have.
Joe? No? Tom?
Well, just thanks to Nate and Derek and department heads for their presentation tonight, very informative, and I think we got a lot out of it like we normally do, so thanks again.
Karen?
I concur. Thank you all for dressing up, coming on in, and giving your speeches. Al. You're still funny. And Jimmy, good job, and being the secretary of the APPA, local.
AWWA, yep.
Yeah, I don't think I quite realized that, but good job. Yeah. Thanks.
I'd just like to thank everybody for all their hard work on the budgets. I know how stressful that can be, but we always seem to make it work, so thanks for all your hard work. That's all I have.
Same thing, I know what it goes into to create one of those monsters. So, yeah, it's hard work, so good job. Thank you for the presentation.
I'll say the same thing. Thanks for the presentation. Thanks for your hard work, keeping the budget under control.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to add one thing that you'll probably be seeing in this next week because we have an upcoming council meeting. Because of the elimination of the cable services, I will be doing what's called a negative appropriation in front of council probably next week. I haven't presented it yet. I plan to do it, and I spoke to Nate about it because we did not collect revenues for half a year on cable, so I want to go ahead and reduce it. And then I'll also reduce the appropriation by the same for the programming costs. And that's just to throw it back to when we submit our budget into county to say that we made a committed decision to reduce the service, so we're reducing revenues and expenses. So I just wanted to let you know that you'd see a negative. But since it wasn't a request for an appropriation, I didn't bring it in because it's a negative of something we've already decided to do. But I wanted to get that settled before the end of the year, so I wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Laurie. With that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dick?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Annette?
Yes.
Karen? Yes.
Meeting adjourned.